Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony, and thank you for joining us. If you're joining us live, thanks for the time. I can see the chat is filling up as I speak. And if you're catching us on the replay, then thanks for taking the time to nerd out and enjoy a little bit of Star Trek fandom as we enjoy this thing we call Star Trek New Worlds. But if you're wondering what that is, first time viewer, Star Trek New Worlds is a turn-based strategy game that we play using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. We show it to you using a platform called Vassal, and of course we stream it to you live here on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. So if you're catching us on any one of those platforms, feel free to hit the various buttons. If you're catching us on YouTube, which is where you can participate in the chat, you can hit that thumbs up. Or if you like what we do here and want to see more of it, then you can hit that subscribe button. Make sure to get that bell so you know when we're going live. And of course, if you like it even more and you say, Tony, I love what you do. I love what the team does. How can I buy you one of those wonderful steaming cups of caffeination that you seem to be sucking on all the time? Well, there is a link right down there, the coffee link. You can send your support that way, whether in a one-time offering, supporting a coffee my way, or a monthly subscription or support rather, one of the tiers of which you can join us on the Discord channel, which we'll be jumping to after the end of this live stream. And of course, that's where we do a lot of our storyline role-playing and bitter banter as we go back and forth, sharing our funny commentary. Incidentally, on Discord yesterday, we had a funny back and forth about all things Tropic Thunder, various other forms of silly humor. I was throwing in a little bit of my nautical flag terminology from the Navy, and various other kinds of tomfoolery. So if you like a little bit of joking around and silly fun, and of course you want to enjoy and get more involved in the role play and the overall storytelling that is this game, Star Trek New Worlds, then please feel free to join us on Discord by hitting that tier over at Coffee. But if Patreon is more your thing, then the description or the link for that is in the description below for this video. So with that said, what are we talking about today? Today is exciting. Thank you, Mr. GM, for quite the list of things that we can talk about today. Well, let me just go down the list. First of all, the fall of Hydrax. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true. The assault has begun. The ships are in orbit, and the bombardment is booming as the bombs are dropping. Bombs over Baghdad, in this case over Hydrax. As the thumbnail kind of suggested. Also, we've got some big changes to the map, which we're going to show in a moment. Something that one of our comments, or one of the comments on one of the videos from one of our supporters. Let me just pull up the name. John 10 Broke made a reference to something we should call sort of the Carnarvon supply line, and I think we're going to call it something else, but I am going to use that name for something that's happened on the map, and I'll show it to you in a minute. Yeah, so John, thanks for that. Thanks for that little nugget. I like it. I like it. Okay, so we've got more excitement on the Four Powers War. We've got Juggernaut as police. Qu'est-ce qui arrive? What is going on? We'll discuss that in a moment. Border, I hardly know her. That's the changes to the borders and the map that you will see in just a moment. We've got some stormy weather, some crazy shenanigans happening over in the Gorn hegemony. So what's going on over there? Apparently there is a web of justice being thrown over Tholian space. The Orions are suffering a little bit of loss at the hands of the Tholians. What's that all about? And of course, we're going to check in with the Lyrans with their steady expansion and exploration of their space. All part of today's Turn 63 reveal. But before we get started, let's jump over to the chat and check in with our folks, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness, the chat is a-going. Okay, Bill, shields up and plasma to enveloped levels. Phasers charge. Het paid for. Oh, high energy turn. My goodness. SFB references cycle warp energy through the batteries, and away we go. Eugene, welcome back. Big update on the way. Ready for the show. Week's waiting is nearly over. Indeed, it nearly is. Jim, GW era fusions being fitted together. Ooh, he thinks he's getting to that next level of technology. Watch out. Hydrons are coming back with force. Bill, hey, Eugene and Jim. Afternoon, everyone. Don't forget to like today's show. Eugene, My goodness, thank you so much for your steady participation. I love it. Get your popcorn ready. Today's looks like a worthy extra butter. I agree. Chuck is in the house. Good afternoon, my fellow nerds. Well, thank you, sir. I opened the map and read, whoa, ladies and gentlemen, new donation from the Juggernaut Police. I will take a sip in honor of that. Thank you. I got to say, if it wasn't for the Juggernauts, this show would be broke, as John broke that commentary from before. I know. Terrible puns. Terrible puns. Okay, Paul is in the house. Bill saying, hi, Chuck. Bill and Jim both waving hi to Paul. Chuck, have any of you all ever heard of Sabaton? Is that like sabotage? Like the Beastie Boys song? I don't know. I've never heard of Sabaton. Daniel is in the house. Pew pew. Bill, Sabaton, Sabo, as in, well, we all know our Star Trek 6 references, is the sleeve to make a round or bullet fit the barrel. Oh, interesting. There we go. Little weapons tech references. Chuck, heavy metal group. Most of their songs are all about military history. Interesting. Sabaton. Okay. Never heard of Sabaton. We'll have to check them out at a later time. But let me say hello. Welcome all. Let's get into the business of today. Let's start with the map. And, oh, well, I didn't necessarily mean for us to start off here. This is just where the map opened up. Let's start with the story of the changing borders. So since we're just happen to be right here right now, let's scroll down and show what is going on along the Klingon and Romulan border. Notice anything different from last week's live stream? I'll let you take a look. So good. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the border between the Romulans and the Klingons has been a-changing. You will notice the S-curve. Not a performance of growth or profit or loss. No, this is a changing border along the Romulan Klingon shared border. You will notice a couple of interesting things between the red and the black. First of all, so we notice the dog leg on the bottom here where we're curving over to the east side of the map and then down to the south, giving the Romulans a little more space to be able to do their exploration and so on. However, that sort of translates into a little bit of a dog leg up top, a little bit of a movement to, I guess, allow a little bit more access and room for the Klingons to be able to move north towards the center of the map. So a little tit for a little tat, and away we go. You will also notice the black R&D team and the red R&D team swapping spots. This is the Nerds on the Move headline. I love what the GM wrote here. Daniel wrote a very funny little commentary here. Nerds on the Move is the title. Klingon. So news coming in. Klingon and Romulan scientists institutes have begun a foreign exchange program. Reactionaries claim that these brainiacs in reality are hostages. But both governments claim that this is the dawn of a new era of discovery and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true that the nerds on both sides of the border are exchanging places, swapping spots, you might say, to be able to exchange the best of ideas, the best practices, and foster the development of new and exciting technologies between them. No, they are not hostages. They are, in fact, an exchange of assets between one phenomenal partner and the other excellent. I was looking for another synonym for partner, but nonetheless, we are looking to swap spots as far as tape-colored glasses and pocket protectors to be able to share the most exciting and developing news in the world. So you can see that the R&D team in red, which is the Romulans, the black, which is the Klingons, they are both one turn away from each other's homeworld, so you can see that that will be happening in short order. So very exciting that you will see or continue to see the exploration and expansion of scientific programs between the Romulans and the Klingons. How far we have come since the days of shooting each other and decimating each other's fleets. No, now we are partners, hand in hand, working our way forward, onward, and upward. Speaking of upward, let's take a quick look at something else that's happened on the map. Let me just maximize that. using my Transformers reference. Maximize. Okay. Yes. So full credit to John Broke, who came up with this term. Loved it. So he was originally making reference to the supply line that was going up here into Hydran space. He was saying we should call it the dog leg. And I think that was an extremely appropriate reference to that. However, I'm going to call something else the dog leg. As you will notice, there is a interesting little exchange here, the FTZ, which is shown up, this dotted yellow space here. What is this? Well, in conversations, a little bit of broken telephone and a little one-on-one time with the Carnivons. The Klingons and the Carnivons have established what I'm going to call the dog leg. It is a free access zone, free transit zone, hence the FTZ, where ships can be able to travel back and forth. So Klingon ships will be able to travel through that space. Carnivon ships will be able to travel through that space without instigating war with each other. Why is that important? Because as we currently have the rules, when one faction goes into or crosses the neutral zone of another faction and enters into their territory, then by default, you have to assume war status. Meaning, again, in this game, there are 3 economic states: peace, limited war, and war. Peace status is 50% of your income with you do not incur war turns. Limited war is 75% of your total income, gross income, and you do not incur war turns. Whereas in peace, you can recover from war turns. Limited war, you cannot. And then there is war status. And for every turn of war status, you get 100% of your income, and you also incur or earn yourself 1 turn of war status. Once you reach 20 of these wonderful war turns and turn over to the 21, starting in 21, turn 21 of war turns, you start incurring penalties. There's in the first tier, you get 75% of your income, even though you're at war. And then after 10 turns of that, then you go to 50%, and then there's other kind of penalties that you incur. So the idea behind this mechanism is to try and discourage a total war state where you're always perpetually at war. And also provides incentives like ebbs and flows for economic benefit, and of course penalties if you're at war for too long. So what this free trade zone, or the dog leg, allows us to do is, as we've created it, as we've negotiated it between the Carnivons and the Klingons, it will allow the free transit of Klingon units and Carnivon units through that space, that corridor, without incurring war on each other, or not instigating war on each other. So that's a very interesting sort of development, and it was, again, the result of some negotiations, some changes as we're going forward, and of course cooperation with our GM to make sure that was all copacetic and that met all our requirements, so to speak. So yes, very exciting. You will also notice, as I just pull away the ships ever so quickly, the continuing exploration of that border area. You've got a large exploration freighter, and then the Carnivon YSR, which is their exploration or survey ship. So they're doing that. And we can go through the rest of the sort of Klingon, Romulan, and Carnivon territories, but I don't want to hold you back from the headline issue of today. No, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you, without further ado, to the Hydran homeworld. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is different. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you see on this map? Do you see a color that shouldn't be there? Do you see a shape, a form, something out of place? Well, let me tell you, that little star should definitely not be yellow, or at least wouldn't normally be yellow, but now it is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Hydran Empire has lost their capital system. The fall of Hydrax has happened, and let's go over exactly what happened there. Oh, I'll move my head to the other side because, of course, I'm right in the way. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just cut and paste from what I received. Not too much going on as far as a lot of detail on the battle because there wasn't much to talk about. So, Hydran forces retreated under the cover of the old colony squadron and various bases. So, what happened? The ISC showed up with a boatload of ships, and the Hydrans ran away. So, without going into the full stack of the ships that were there, we can see here that in the battle that occurred, because all the Hydran ships retreated, we saw 1 YCL crippled, 2 YDD cripples. So there's 3 total crippled ships from the ISC. The Hydrans lost a YBS, 7 YPGBs, which are those Y aeroplanetary ground bases, 2 Vols, and 1 was crippled. All planets have been devastated and captured. Hydran forces retreat, ISC forces, some of them retreat, and there is an ISC victory. So not too much to describe there. Yeah. So a couple things. My goodness, look at all this stuff. Okay. So what does this mean? What happens when a player, oh, let me move my head to the other side. Of course, I'm now in the way. What happens here? What happens when a player loses their capital system? Okay. So before I go into the details of where all those ships went and what's going on, let's just discuss something that's come up with regards to more strategic gameplay in this game. And I'll switch back to this screen just for this. Okay. So in these games, as we've mentioned before in previous live streams, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. However, we're here to play a game. We're here to have fun. So we're not here to torture a player and force them through a painful and not fun exercise of playing through sort of a devastated and falling apart empire. We don't want them to have to sort of move the crumbs around a table in order to try and like play this thing out. So we don't want it to be painful. We don't want it to be a lack of fun for the player who's losing. But at the same time, we don't want to create a situation where it's sort of not fun for the winner either. We want to create a mechanism, an avenue for both the winner and the loser to do so respectfully, honorably, and to continue the fun. As I rub my eye here very quickly. So what we've done, and I should explain, in previous games, in past games, there have been circumstances where we've had players sort of fall out or disappear from the game. And in some instances, there have been those departures of those players have been very disruptive because you would have a player who occupied a large portion of space basically just disappear. So what do you do with that faction? What do you do with all their assets and things like that? If the GM takes over the player faction, well, that kind of makes things difficult for the GM as it's more workload for them, but also it creates an imbalance. If you were just to remove them, like just all their resources go neutral and you just remove the players, so that, again, that creates an imbalance because the initial distribution of players is supposed to be balanced, generally speaking, so that you've got players in all different parts of the map. And so you would have basically this giant void of free resources available to whoever wants to fill that gap. Again, an imbalance. So the best possible option that we've come up with is to we're introducing the Abdication Rule. Now, what this does effectively is allows, and this rule is sort of, we'll call it in beta testing mode. It is the introduction of this rule, and it may change to certain degrees as we move forward. But these are the rough outlines of how this rule is going to work. Once a player either leaves the game for whatever reason, external events, life crises, whatever the case is, but the player leaves and or a player is defeated, a player can abdicate or surrender their game. So, for example, if a player lost their homeworld and at that point decided, oh, you got me, I cry uncle, good game, reach out, shake hands, good sportsmanship and all that stuff, it allows them the ability to back away from the game in a respectful and honorable way. So the player that is departing the game all their assets that they have planets, they have ships, they have resources and all that stuff. So what ends up happening is essentially the government will collapse and all the planets will become their own minor factions. The level of supply technology of the empire at the time of their collapse will dictate the distance from the planet, the distance from the planet where their neutral zone will appear. So, for example, if you have 3 supply, 3 hexes out, then there will be a neutral zone established there. Any and all resources that are within that bubble are the property or become ownership of that particular minor faction or planet. And any other resources that are outside the general supply stretch or reach of any of these minor planets or any of the planets, so colonies, developing planets, minor planets, medium planets, or major planets, any of those, anything outside of those ranges become just neutral. So you've got neutral planets, neutral resources, independent planets, and have within their supply range access to the resources that they previously had as part of that empire. So effectively what we're creating are minor factions plus. Minor factions normally in these games pop up as colonies, colonies developing minor, medium, or major planets that have a 1 hex neutral zone immediately around the planet. So with these essentially are the same idea, the difference being that the neutral zone bubble will be at the edge of their current supply technology. In addition, all fleets, ships, everything that is remaining will basically do some kind of random die roll. And the results of that die roll will indicate where those ships will go in the sense of which faction, which planet, who are they going to support. And those ships will then move, either snap of a finger or strategic movement or however the movement will occur. Still haven't worked that piece out yet. And they will move to those various planets and form the fleets of those various planets. Now, the intent of this process, this procedure, this rule is to again create some sense of balance, make sure that these factions, these minor plus factions, aren't just it's a little bit of a speed bump or barrier for players to be able to progress through. It also prevents the possibility of perpetual states of war, which drive people into states of war fatigue when they may not want to or they may not desire to. However, of course, this does not preclude any player from continuing to play their faction if, for example, after the fall of a capital, and they want to continue to fight the fight and they want to come back. So it's really just a vehicle, a method, a process by which a player can admit defeat if they want to and back away from the game without creating a huge void and an imbalance in the game. So that's sort of the basic framework. More details on that will be published by our GM in our Discord channel for those of you who are playing the game. So we will see how that goes forward. But for those of you who are following along at home and not already part of our Discord, please feel free to head over to that link below and feel free to join us if you'd like to. But if you're not already familiar with that, that's sort of the mechanic that we've put in place to be able to facilitate the kindly, respectful, and honorable way for any particular player to back out of the game. As we move forward in this game and other players start to fall like dominoes, it may be employed more often than not. We'll see how that goes forward. I mean, granted, we've got many turns to go before our next player potentially faces a capital assault, as we've seen here. But there are many interesting things that could happen between now and then. Now, let's jump into this capital system. So, what's interesting? So I don't know. Normally, when you are looking at a capital system, by example, you would go up to the menu, and let me go back to the map here. When you go into the menu, you go at the top of the screen that you can't see right here. There is a menu item that I can select for the hydrant. So I would pick hydrants and I would pick capital. So the hydrant capital system, as you can see, is now all yellow. This is the location of the hydrant capital. So this just answers my question. The question was, how do I illustrate or show the hydrant capital system? And this is what we show. So here's a question. Theoretically, once your capital's been sacked, you can establish a new capital. How are we going to do that going forward if the Hydran capital is going to be featured in this block? Because you could establish a new, granted, not a multi-planet system. That's the benefit of starting off the way we do. But for example, there is, oh, and there it is, a new capital system. Okay, we'll show that in a sec. Okay, so anyways, just as far as the mechanics of Vassal and how we're showing it, for the purposes of the map, the Hydran capital system is currently under the ownership of the ISC. You can see that their major, minor, and developing planets are all under the control of the ISC. Here's a question for the GM, just for clarification. Daniel, whereas a capital system, or rather a capital planet, provides any one player 10 EP by default, once a conquering player goes in and conquers that planet, are we going to treat it as a major planet, as in 5 EP, or does it become basically another capital system and you're using it as 10 EP? I will wait for your response in the chat, but I have a feeling I know what the answer is. But nonetheless, that's what that looks like. So we've got a major planet, minor planet, and a developing planet, all devastated and all, of course, unhappy. Now, let's take a look at what fleets are in and around the area. So we've got Law Fleet and Third Fleet. Let's take a look at this. So the ISC, Law, and Third. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's put that there. So Law Fleet is 3 DDs and 2 CLs. That's right here. And ISC Third Fleet is, well, I can leave it there, a YCL and 4 YDDs. So nothing crazy, but what's particularly of note is that these are at the edge of the supply from this YTG in X-Ray 22. So let me just move up here a little bit. Let me move the ships out of the way so you can see what's going on here. So they have a YBS that's been built here. And this YBS, assuming supply 3, can provide supply to here, X23. And then if they had a tug here, that tug could offer supply up until the homeworld. So with the tug in the second hex here, X22, 1, 2, 3, it can effectively provide supply up to X25. So that's why those ships have retreated the way they have. So they are in those various hexes. Now there is also a tug here at the edge of the 3 hex range. So if that tug provides extended supply, then it will provide supply to cover the distance to the homeworld. And this is a particular note of a rule in this game that may not be in other games. When you conquer a system or a planet, when you conquer that planet, it does not immediately provide you supply. Now, there are rules in the basic Federation Empire rule set when it comes to the annexation and the devastation of planets. And fundamentally, because in the normal tabletop game, it's all at the GW level of tech, so the highest level of tech. And at that level of tech, when you conquer a planet in your turn, you do not get supply from that planet until the end of your phasing turn. ISC go first, then the Hydrans. So the ISC will take the planet and they will not have supply until the end of their phase turn. Then the Hydran player will begin their turn or their phase. And at the beginning of their turn, at that point, the ISC would be able to get supply from that planet. However, that's a specific GW tech. And because we have different eras of technology, W, Y, M, and GW, there had been a rule whereby there was a period of time of annexation, then development. During the annexation period, you would not be able to draw supply from that planet. Based on the way this game had been developing and being played, we're not incorporating that rule, and we are effectively allowing at the end of your phase play, at the end of your phased turn, you can draw supply from that planet. if that makes sense. So essentially, we're working as if we all have GW tech in this particular criteria, but may not be the way we do it going forward in future campaigns, if that makes sense. Fait du sens? Okay. So that's what that looks like. So right now, we have the ISC owning that particular capital system, and they have fleets within reaction distance to be able to support or defend it if they want to. Now, what happened to the Hydran fleet? So what do we got in the area? We've got Old Colony Squadron, which was initially the Three Musketeers. So let's take a look at Hydran Old Colony Squadron. So it was initially the Three Musketeers. Now Porthos is all by himself. Crippled as well. We've got 2 Vols and a Tug over here on this YBS. We've got, what's this? First Fleet, Hydran First Fleet. So Hydran First Fleet is a DD and 2 Vols right over here. And we've got Home Fleet, Expeditionary, and Iron. Ooh, goodness. Hydran. Home Fleet. Woo. Let's move that up here. So Home Fleet is the collection of YCCs. They've got 5 of them. They've got 6-7 Vols in that particular fleet. And in addition, Iron and Expeditionary. So Expeditionary Fleet. Woo! So that's got a fair number of ships. You've got a DN, 2 CCs, 2 crippled CCs, 6 crippled Vols, and a non-crippled Vol. So there's a substantial fleet there, just a little bit crippled. And then Iron Fleet, where we got Hydran. Is it going to be in Iron? There we go, Iron. So Iron Fleet has a DD and 2 Vols. So essentially we've got, I would not say it's a small fleet, but we definitely have a pared down Hydran fleet, collection of Hydran fleets in this area, both here on Victor 26 and then down here in Uniform 28. So that's basically the bulk of the Hydran fleet at this point. So without a doubt, the ISC have dropped the hammer on the Hydrans. They have crushed them in a rather substantive way. The casualties or the impact has been that they've lost their capital system, and just for a sense of how much economy that is, assuming, and I can't remember, I do believe all the planets in the home system were happy plus. So when you had a developing planet, which is 2 EP, no benefit to be happy plus. Then you had a minor planet, which had 3 EP, but when happy plus, it is 3.5. So that's 5.5 EP. And then the capital planet, or the capital, is a 10 EP, but when it's happy, it gives you 12. So 12 plus 5.5 is 17.5. So they've effectively lost 17.5 EP this turn, which is, of course, brutal, and I expect will cause huge problems with their balance sheet and how they're spending money, because without a doubt, I would imagine that they've been doing deficit spending, in the sense you're spending more than you have, starting every turn with a slight negative balance, and then when you get your income, it pops it over the positive mark. But when you've lost 17.5 EP, that's going to have a major impact on your total economy. And then if it's the case that they were not able to get positive after their income, then that means that all R&D and all spending and all that stuff, all spending is canceled until they're able to get into a positive EP balance sheet. So if you started the turn at -1 and you earned 2 EP, and you started the beginning of your build phase with 1 EP in the balance sheet, you're good. If you started with -3, had 2 EP as income, and started your turn with -1, you don't get to spend any money at all in any way until you're positive, because you're basically defaulting on your debt, and you got to pay that first. Those are the economic rules of the game. So I would be interested to see and interested to hear, although that would probably perhaps be a bridge too far as sharing the back end of what's going on with the Hydrans, as to what is going on their balance sheet. So big big impact when it comes to that. Let's look at some of the other parts of the map here, though. So here's an interesting little nugget. In the top, sort of the hole that was created by that exploration fleet, we've got two FFs and two YFFs and a YCA from the Carnarvon and Second Fleet. So Hydran's Second Fleet. What's in Hydran's Second Fleet? Oh, that's not nothing. A YCC, 4 Vols, and 2 Cripples. So they've effectively done what they can to plug that hole. Very interesting. And then, of course, the ISC still they have Justice Fleet, which I recall is not necessarily a lot. Where's Justice Fleet? Oh. Am I missing something? Where's Justice? Justice? Truth? Hold on. Oh, there's nothing. Oh. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Justice Fleet. Okay, so YDD, 2 YDDs. Nothing too crazy. 2 YDDs, and there's also another. My goodness, this is one of the things I love about Vassal. Okay, so we've got a total of 3 non-crippled YDDs, 2 crippled YFFs, and then, of course, there's Columbia Fleet, which is the Riemann Fleet, and so they still have their 5 frigates, a destroyer, and a cruiser, and 3 crippled frigates. So very interesting. I'd be very interested to see a couple things. One, did this fleet attack an ISC fleet that was in this hex, or did the ISC attack? What was the exchange? Because, of course, due to supply, the Hydrans having a 4 hex supply, 1, 2, 3, 4, they could have attacked, depending on where they positioned, they could attack the base, retreat into this hex, Oscar 21, and then retrograde back. But considering their position, I'm assuming the battle, the encounter happened either in Oscar 22 or Oscar 21. So we'll be interested to see how that played out and what happened where and when. And especially with the ISC ships being crippled on the base, I want to say that it must have occurred there. Interesting. Okay, there's also Riemann Triton Fleet here. Triton Fleet. Oh, well, look at that. So Triton Fleet, which is coming down to say hello, is 6 destroyers, 2 frigates, and a cruiser. So not nothing as well. They've got another group of ships coming to say hi. That's very nice of them, isn't it? Okay, so what else we got as far as the Carnarvon in the area? So we've still got the minor planet here, and we've got a DN and a YCC and a crippled Vol for the Hydrans, as well as their 5th fleet, which is, of course, just 1 ship. Status quo for the Hydrans. And the Carnarvon have Fox Skulk 1, which is this fleet. Oh, interesting. So they got some cripples here. They got 1 crippled CA, crippled commando ship. But other than that, they're in pretty good shape. They've got a CC, a CA, 3 drone bombardment cruisers, a drone bombardment destroyer, and a frigate. So not a whole ton of ships, but nothing, certainly. In addition, they've got a drone bombardment destroyer, frigate, and another destroyer on the way up. There is a Hydran dreadnought and Vol there as well. Oh my goodness, so many things. And I'm just so curious to know the supply situation here because it looks so interesting. We've also got the Carnarvons with, the Carnarvons, it would seem, are building a YBS here. So that looks like it will be completed very shortly. They've got a convoy with 2 escort frigates building that right there. We've got, I'll talk about the Juggernauts and the Bugs in a second. And then we've got the, what is this? So the Carnarvons with their captured Orion and YBS here. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So, long story short, Hydrans took a big hit. They're on the back foot. But what do the ISC do now? Are the ISC going to continue their assault moving forward, or are they going to draw a line in the sand? Are they going to negotiate a new deal with the Hydrans and the Carnarvons? Are they going to establish a new border? Are they going to carve up Hydran territory and just take it all for themselves? So many options left on the table. Because of the sort of massive ships that are left, I'm very curious as to what's going to go on. we'll briefly address the Juggs and the monster real quick, and then we'll do the EP and fleet cap roundtable for the entire map, and then we'll see how that goes. So, the bug, not much to say. It used to be in X-Ray 30, and now it's in Whiskey 31. So it's slowly moving down towards the Carnarvon. I would be worried if I were the Carnarvon, but we'll have to see how that goes. The Juggernaut ship seems to be moving down towards at this point, towards the Carnarvon and the Hydrans. That particular ship, being that it is a Mauler, alone can take out, in one shot, well, not in one shot, but it can very easily take out a base, and certainly any sort of like frigates or small ships that are in the way. So I'll be very curious to see what happens with that Juggernaut next turn, whether it moves towards the base or the Carnarvon frigate, or what happens there, because yeah, it's very strange to see, at least in our current experience in the game, to see a Juggernaut ship on its own, and then, of course, it being there. It'd be very interesting to see what happens. It'll move first before... It'll move first before the Hydrans and the Carnarvon, so it'll be interesting to see sort of what the result of that will be. Another thing to think about here, let me just take away the ships for a sec. So we can see that Refuge has been given over to, I'm assuming not conquered, but rather given over to the Hydrans. So now that their capital has been taken, they need to establish a new capital system, or like a new base of operations for their government. Where is that going to be? Jim, question to you. Oh, there's lots of comments there. I'll get into that in a second. So where is the capital going to be? Because you have to have a capital, or like a center of government. So where is that going to be? And once you establish it, how are you going to move that going forward? So we'll have to figure out what that is, and so on. But that's an interesting dynamic between the monsters and the Juggernauts, and how they're getting close to the Carnarvon, and what's going on down there. So just before I jump into, well, I'll do EP and fleet cap, and then we'll go to comments real quick. Okay, so EP over there, fleet cap, it'll take a second, and there it is. Okay, we'll put that over here. We'll just expand that ever so slightly. Okay. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go around the table and do a round the table cap or summary of everyone's EP and how things are moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, the Carnarvon are at 45 EP. Now, I believe, as I scroll over here, and I'm just going to peek up here, I do believe, yep, that planet is still part of the Federation. So all that means is that it shows 45 because there is a colony over in Federation space, so their actual is 44. The Federation continued to be steady at 39 EP. The Gorn, 41. The Hydran have fallen substantially from their peak of just over 40 to now 25.5 EP. Good news is they've got the initiative. Bad news is, of course, 25.5 EP translates into basically 13, 12.5, 12 3/4 EP per turn. The ISC have jumped to 41.5 EP, keeping in mind that the EP from the captured Hydran system are currently an isolated supply grid. They can't access any of that EP until they connect the dots for supply. But once they do, and they connect it to their home system or their home capital network, supply network, then they'll be able to access those funds. So 41.5 for the ISC. The Klingons maintaining steady at 45. The Kzinti, that's a minor faction, so never mind. The Lyrans at 39.5, tied with the Remans, also 39.5. The Romulans steady at 37, and the Tholians continue to grow. Bastards. Up to 48.5. I, of course, am just jealous of the fact that they have now surpassed the Klingon Empire as the top dog on the economic ladder, and they're continuing to grow. So frustrating. All right, let's go to fleet cap. So going down the fleet cap, the Carnarvon currently have 74 total ships with 184, 319 split. So getting close to that 200 number, and their total number of ships is very high. Federation have a total of 50 ships. They are starting to grow with 131, 210 split. Very interesting. The Gorn, with 40 ships, 10 less than the Feds, have 84, 169 split. So again, the Gorn continue to have crappy ships relative to everybody else. That's why their attack and defense factors are so low compared to everybody else, but nonetheless, 40 ships. The Hydrans continue to have 72 ships, so still a big fleet count, but their total attack factors are 161 with defense at 276. Dwarfing the Hydrans and everybody else on the map is the ISC with a total of 90 ships and their 278 total attack factors. Oh my God. And 400, count it, 400 defense factors. That is sick. So 90 ships with 278, 400 split. Wow. The Klingons staying steady at 54 with a 142, 225 split. Notice the slight increasing of attack factors. That's because all those crippled ships that I had before are slowly getting repaired, and as they get repaired, their true attack factor and defense factors start coming back online, which is why I'm getting close to the 150 mark again. The Kzinti, that's a minor faction. Again, here we go. Lyrans at 59 total ship equivalents, so more than the Klingons, but at 137, 274 split, so more defense factors, lower attack factors than the Klingons by example. The Paravians, again, a minor faction. Remans still king of the hill when it comes to their total number of ships at 94. However, what's interesting to note is their attack to defense factor split. So whereas the ISC had a 278, 400, oh my God, split, the Remans have a 270, so very close, attack factor, but 352 defense factor. So without a doubt, certainly a big hammer to drop, but very interesting to see the difference in attack and defense factors for the Remans versus the ISC, and that split in between them. The total fleet cap as far as the total potential defense factors of the ISC is up to 416 versus 372 for the Remans. Combined, those two factions are unreal. The Romulans increasing their ship count to 50 with a 141 to 221 split. So interesting to note the parity between not only ship count, but attack and defense factors between the Romulans and the Klingons. Very interesting. Tholians are at 50 ships total with 72, 193. So very interesting to see how that's all going. Let's go back to the chat real quick, and wow, there's a lot to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We are now in the double digits for our live stream today. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, lucky number 13 I can see. If you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, then please consider doing so just to tickle the YouTube algorithm in just the right way. But let's get into the chat, and oh my goodness, so much here. Okay, Eugene, Hydrax has no garrison? Isn't a captured planet required to have a garrison of some sort? And don't abandon capital planets gain a defense force and need to be recaptured? Interesting. Chuck, good. I had a bunch of names I was going to call you. Oh, okay. I see what's going on there. In the discussion of whether Jim was going to just leave the game, that is not the case, and Chuck was going to call him dirty names. Let's see here. Yes, it should flip back next turn if there are no ISC ships. I'm not sure what that is all about. Okay, Jim. Refuge has changed hands and is in the process of being renamed New Hydrax. Okay, so Refuge, that planet right on the Carnarvon border, it would seem that is going to become the new Hydran capital. Daniel, our GM, says, Hydran Carnarvon Alliance is now smaller income than ISC Reman, so the Hydran Carnarvon is going to move first next turn. Dun, dun, dun. Very interesting. Chuck, how are we doing 508.23? 508.23 being a reference to the rule set. And I'd have to just check what that is. I don't know it off the top of my head. I want to say, is that capital assaults? I'm not sure. I just have to check. But without a fleet, without a substantive fleet, by the defending factor, it becomes kind of a moot point in that regard based on the number of ships that showed up. But we can go over that at some point in the future if we would like to. Don't forget the flood of pirate mercenaries on the ISC during the turn. Yes, we will have to go over the ISC section in here in a moment. But so I'll have to go find the map. But there was a significant investment in ISC pirate activity, and we will have to see what the results of that were. Basically, the Hydrans decided to do one last gasp, so to speak, at trying to cause pain on the Hydrans, on the ISC, and so we'll have to see how that looks. Lord Lawless, better late than never. What's that golden yellow rod from the ISC into Hydran space? A nice star at the end of it. Yes, well, we have lots of innuendo in this game, so let's just pile it on, shall we? Daniel, laugh out loud. No, do bugs get easier to kill when they reach retirement age? Haha. Using a walker with little yellow balls on the bottom, glasses, hearing aids. Okay. George Duffy says, hey all. So ISC capture Hydrans help the Remans capture the Carnivon, thereby allowing a double team of Remans Romulans on conquering the Klingons. Oh, really? Well, we'll have to see if that happens, but very interesting if that were to be the case. Okay, Bill, capital reverting back to Hydrans if no garrison. Okay, so we don't have a firm answer as of today, this live stream, on the garrison issue. However, it is true, as per previous discussions with the GM, perhaps Daniel can clarify for us here. If you do not have a certain number of attack factors and military units in the hex of a captured planet, whatever that planet is, there is a chance that that planet will declare independence. So in the case of the Hydran planet, the question, or the capital system, the question would be, would it go back to the Hydrans or would it just declare independence? Not sure. But it's not a certainty. It is a chance roll. So I don't know. I do not have insight on the behind the Oz curtain of how that works. Perhaps Daniel can illuminate us on how that's going to play out. However, there is a key number that they're looking for when it comes to total attack factors and military units. And yes, if you do not leave military units in place to maintain sort of ownership of the conquered planet, there is a strong possibility that that planet will cede from your empire and become sort of an independent faction. Whether it would go back to Hydrans or not sure. That would be sort of an interesting discussion to figure out. So with that said, I will leave it to our good GM to be able to clarify. Referring back 508.23. So 508.23 seems to be with regards to capital. So that will be, why don't we table that for discussion in the Discord after the live stream. We are going to discuss 508.23 and how it affects this game for all of our players joining us on Discord. And if you haven't already had a chance to join us on our Discord channel, then you can head over to that link down there, supporting us at coffee.com/New Worlds. And you can check us out by joining our coffee support network, our family of sorts, and you can join us on the Discord channel if you are a coffee supporter at the right tier there, and of course if Patreon is more your style, you can do that at Patreon as well. Link to that is in the description. But let's get back to the exciting map and scroll up into ISC space. So you will notice that there is quite a little bit of damage in and around in and around ISC space. So without showing you all the different pirate attacks that did occur, there were a number of pirate attacks that occurred within ISC space. They were contracted by the Hydrans to be able to cause damage and do bad things. Now, we can see that there are a number of bases that have SIDS, or Starbase Incremental Damage System, 1 SIDS worth of damage. Each one of these YBSs have 2 SIDS until they're crippled, and then 1 SIDS and they're destroyed. Each SID for the YBSs is a 4 damage. You can see that this YBS in Romeo 17, this base in Tango 17 and this base in Victor Victor 13, all of which were damaged up to 1 SIDS. Now, if we bring back the ships, you will also notice there are damaged ships in those areas. We have a damaged YFF here on the YDK. We have a damaged, or rather crippled, YFF over here on top of this crippled base in Romeo 17. We have a crippled YFF over here at Tango 13. So there are crippled ships all around. This one over here looks like at X-ray 15. So there was a certain amount of damage that was done and a certain amount of damage that was rebuffed. So yeah, lots of attempts to screw up the efforts of the ISC. Sort of one last gasp as the assault on the capital of Hydrax was inevitable, and that was coming one way or the other. So that's good. We have basically a bunch of damage that the ISC are going to have to spend money to repair. And of course, they're still at war. What the exact number of war turns that they're at, we don't know. But it is a fair guess that they are well within the double digits, as in like somewhere in the teens. And remember, once they get to 21, they'll start incurring penalties, 75% of their income, and so on. So where are they at? Of course, that is also true for the Hydrants. The Hydrants will continue to be at war. Both the ISC and the Hydrants will continue to be at war as long as they maintain control of this territory inside the previously agreed neutral zone. So unless they come to a new set of terms or agreement establishing a new neutral zone, so they got to come to a new agreement diplomatically, or the other way to do it is what's called the Disputed Hex System, which this is sort of a homebrew rule system. And basically what that means is that ships from one faction will exert reactionary or area of control within a certain continuous zone. So one kind of constant flow area. In this case, it would be, as George Duffy was kind enough to describe, the golden rod, as we're going to refer to it, with the star at the end. If they were to exert their area of influence over the golden rod, then as long as they had ships in the hexes that led to the tip of the golden rod, and no Hydran ship or enemy ship ended its turn in a hex that those ships were exerting control over within the reaction range of those ships, then they would maintain that, and they have to maintain it over the course of, I believe it's 6 turns. I'll have to just double check. Switch here as I check out this on the rules. But yeah, once it's done over the course of 6 turns, I believe, at the end of 6 turns, a new neutral zone is formed around that area of control. And once that area of control has been established, then I'm just looking it up here. Disputed hexes. Of course, it would have been good to do this ahead of time, Tony. I'm just thinking of it on the fly. Where are the disputed hexes? Alliances, definition of own territory, disputed hexes. Come on now. Come on now. Show me this disputed hexes rule. So without spending too much time to go looking for it here, I'm trying to find it, and I do believe it is 6 turns. I'm going to spend a little bit more time just trying to scan, looking for it. Supply routes, homeless ships, raids. I cannot find it in the moment here right now, but I believe it might be 6, it might be 4 turns. I will have to clarify that with the folks again. Another thing that we can talk about on the Discord channel after we are checking that out. So, flexible carrier groups, alliances, monsters. Yep. Okay. I'll have to look at it at another time. I apologize. So anyways, a disputed hex system is a way for us to be able to sort that out and create new new barriers. I'm just noticing here the question. Oh, Midget Manifesto, just EP for shipyards. Okay, here's a question. Whoop. Let's see here. All right, let's go to the chat here. So Eugene asks, Hydrax shipyards now gone? Question mark. Must be rebuilt before new ships can be purchased? Question mark. Will there need to be 6 turn 90 EP cost to build them up? Short answer, yes. Don't know if time or cash to rebuild shipyards. Midget Manifesto, just EP for shipyards. If you have 25 EP laying around for a CA slipway, build 1 cruiser every 2 turns. Confirmation, when you devastate and when you go in and devastate a planet in a home system, by example, the shipyards are not inherently destroyed. You have to basically flip the ownership of the planet in order to do that. So you can go in and destroy bases, you can destroy planetary ground bases, you can cripple or devastate the planet, but if you don't take ownership of the planet, you don't destroy the shipyards. When you take ownership of the planet, like the ISC have done, then you destroy the shipyards, and that's what's happened. So as of right now, the Hydrans have been crippled economically, and they have no shipyards to build any more ships. They will have to spend money to build ships. As a recap, 5 EP, correction, 10 EP, you can build a frigate slipway, 1 frigate slipway. 15 for a destroyer, 20 for a light cruiser, 25 for a cruiser. Those are the increments. And then so you can have a total of 3 frigates, 3 destroyers, 1 light cruiser, 1 cruiser slipway per turn, with a total of 3, 3, and 2, and 2 at this point in the game. That can increase later, but as of right now, 2 cruiser slipways, 1 for each season, fall and spring, 2 light cruiser slipways, fall and spring, and then 3 and 3 for destroyers and frigates, which can build each season. So you can build a total of, if you had a full contingent of destroyer and frigate slipways, you could build 6 combined frigates and destroyers every turn if you wanted to. So the Golden Rod is the clever iteration of Lord Lawless. I just predicted the future demise of the Klingons. Okay. Yes. Okay. Lord Lawless. Excellent use of imagery. George Duffy, you're just predicting the future demise of the Klingons. Obviously, George is looking for fun and excitement in the Klingon Empire. I look forward to providing you exactly that. Maybe not in the demise that you're looking for, but certainly some exciting stuff. All right. Let's see. So, shall we continue on with the rest of the ISC assessment? So basically, we've got a bunch of crippled ships, nothing too crazy. One thing of particular note is the monster that's right here. Now, we've seen that the ISC has moved up a couple destroyers, 1 cruiser, light cruiser, 2 destroyers and a frigate up to the base to maybe help defend against this monster. We'll have to see how powerful that monster is. If it does move on to the hex with the base, will it destroy it? We shall see. Other than that, we have a couple of other interesting things that are occurring. So, for example, let's take away the ships real quick. We can see that the Remans are completing a base right here. It would seem as though they are creating a supply network to work their way down into Hydran space. Be very curious to see what that's going to look like and how they're playing that piece. So they're building that base network. Again, the Remans have a supply and base network heading down to, as we can see it, down to this point. So we've got 2 bases that are under construction and will be completed, I think, very shortly. So those are going to be completed and provide extended or supply for Reman ships. What's particularly of note is that once this base here in CR19 is complete, the ships that are based here will be in Reman supply, not in ISC supply. So that could be of benefit. What's particularly interesting is if the ISC were able to negotiate some kind of border agreement with the... If they were able to negotiate a border agreement with the Hydrans, then theoretically, the ISC could remain at peace, and the Remans could continue to attack. Now, if I'm the Hydrans, of course, I want to make sure that we have a binding agreement between all of us, but nonetheless, that's something that they could do. Or the ISC could fall back behind their neutral zone and just let the Remans do the rest of the fighting, and they could go to peace for a while. As long as they did not have ships across the border and were within, they didn't have valid military targets within their supply range, then they could go to peace. However, based on what they're setting up here with the Golden Rod, that's never going to get old. That's not happening anytime soon. So we'll be very interested to see how this goes forward. All right, let's go into Okay, let's go into Riemann space. Now I must be missing something because I don't remember this wormhole being here before. But nonetheless, this Romeo wormhole right here is exiting here. Now that must have been there for some time. I can't. Yeah. Okay. So this wormhole must have been here for some time. I just haven't spent any time paying attention to it. So we got a wormhole here and a wormhole here. What's really interesting about that is if the Riemans get to a point where they can move slow ships through wormholes, this is part of the tech tree and tech progression for wormhole technology specifically, then that exploration freighter can travel because it's a slow-moving unit. It will be able to travel through that wormhole. And 2, they will be able to extend supply through the wormhole, meaning, let's say there's no base there. So the nearest base is where? Okay, let's assume that. So let's assume that the Riemans have supply 4 for this thought experiment. 1, 2, 3, and then they would be able to provide supply through the wormhole into this hex here. That means they would have supply into X-ray 16. That would be very interesting if that's how that would work out. So very interesting to see if and when that ship goes through that wormhole and what happens as a result. What else we got up here? So we've got the continued disposition of Riemann ships up in this neck of the woods. So let's look at the Riemann Prometheus fleet. Couple cruisers, 2, 1 destroyer, and how many? 4 frigates sitting here nice on their own, right next to New Fleet, based on the YDK, and Riemann New Fleet is right there. Oh, no longer a whole bunch of cripples. We've got a cruiser, a Y-era cruiser, 2 W-era cruisers, 4 destroyers, 7 frigates, and 1 W-era frigate. So quite a collection of ships. Not nothing, without a doubt. And certainly when you think about the context of what's in the neighborhood from the Lyran side, more than enough to be able to balance the scales. We can see that the Riemans, with their exploration or survey cruiser, have discovered an Orion pirate. I have a sneaking suspicion that they will go and stomp that because that's what the Riemans do with Orions, typically. But you will notice that there are 3 different Orion bases in Riemann space, and they haven't really gone on their sort of extermination phase. They've gone through various extermination phases of Orions. They haven't done it recently. So I'm curious to see what they end up doing with those different Orion bases. Take a quick sip. Oh, yes, Eugene, catching that on the commentary. Thank you very much. Let's just highlight that for a moment. Clearly, those predicting the fall of the Klingon Empire overlooked the legendary E1 captain guarding the border single-handedly, holding the Carnarvon line. That's right, Eugene. You should definitely be my public affairs officer, press agent, whatever it is. My goodness gracious me. Yes, absolutely. We have heroes in the Klingon Empire. We have noble warriors who rise to the occasion and perform heroic deeds, overcoming obscene obstacles to bring victory, honor to the Klingon Empire. Without a doubt, we are the shining light, the beacon to which all other moths are attracted. Very much so. Chuck says, those who have large fleet caps, they may be nice when you're at war, but when you go back to peace, you're going to be scrapping a lot of hulls. It's true. It's true. Fleet cap can come out and bite you in the bum, so to speak. Let me swap my head around to the other side so we can take a look at the Lyrans as we slide on over. Ladies and gentlemen, my four-legged friend Loki the Weimaraner has just joined us. He is chilling out on the couch, and you may hear his heavy panting because he's hot. Okay, so let's take a look here. What do we got on the border? We've got, yes, a YCA, White Stripe, Apex Fleet. Those are the big things to look at. Lyran, White Stripe. Oh, goodness. Now, where am I going to find these again? I always think of the White Stripes when I see this. Okay, so we've got, we'll put that over here. So we've got White Stripe with, looks like 4 DDs, 4 YDDs and 2 FFs. Sitting there on top of this YBS. And then we've got Apex Fleet, Lyran, Apex, where are ya? Apex Fleet, boom. So you can see, there, put that there. Lyran Apex Fleet, which is sitting right here on the border, again on top of, oh, no base, but they have a DD, CL, CA, and CC, and they also have Hidden Dagger Fleet, ironically hidden underneath the Apex counter. Oh, let's see. Hidden Dagger. Hidden Dagger Fleet. There we are. All right. So Hidden Dagger Fleet with Apex Fleet. So Hidden Dagger's got a DN, a CA, 3 DDs, and 3 FFs. So not nothing on the border there for sure. But I would say it's not a perfect balance with the Remans, but definitely not as disproportional as it used to be. The Remans at one point were head and shoulders way above anything that the Lyrans had in place, but now the Lyrans are a little bit more balanced, certainly on the border. We've got Bloodclaw. Oh, there we go. Bloodclaw and Home Fleet on the homeworld doing their thing, and then of course the continued exploration of various ships down here. We've got still a YBS that's been completed in Zulu 13, lucky number 13, and exploration freighter, exploration survey cruiser, and another exploration freighter here. So continuing to push down into this neck of the woods. We've got another Lyran exploration or survey cruiser here up in this sort of like closing off this little patch of fog of war hexes. And as we look up at the very north, their third exploration or survey cruiser finishing off the fog of war hexes up here, as well as this small exploration freighter doing its thing there. So we've got 3 and 3 focusing on their 2 areas of exploration up north and down south. That is looking good. So what do we got over here at Far Stars? We got Far Stars, which is probably the same W fleet that we've seen before. They've got an R&D. This is interesting. I think that was there before. They got an R&D team on the wormhole. Why is that important? Because they can do extra special research on wormholes and sort of develop that technology going forward. So big highlight for the Lyrans is their continued push towards the center, their goal to be able to wipe out all the fog of war hexes in their space, and of course continuing to push themselves towards the center of where everyone's going to be end up meeting up at some point here. So let's take a look at La Fédération. Hello, Federation. Now, we talked about the whole enchilada, ladies and gentlemen. The whole enchilada is making reference to this big hole in G20. They are staring down the deep divide. And what's going on here? We've got a cruiser, a tug. Tugs, by the way, are cruiser hulls. So tug, cruiser, prime team. And what was the name of that fleet again? Second Fleet. So Federation's Second Fleet. Oh my goodness. They've got 3 cruisers there and 5 frigates. So they've got a total of 4 cruisers, 5 frigates, a prime team, and a tug in and around that space, hopefully preventing any ISC, because that links to ISC space, any particular friends coming through that particular hole. Interesting that they're titling it, I know that's the name of the ship, most likely Midway, but interesting that Midway is right there for all of those with our World War II references. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that particular wormhole going forward. Speaking of wormholes and the Federation, we've got 7th Fleet, which is sitting over that Klingon wormhole. Let's take another quick look, because of course I'm always curious what's on the other side of those wormholes. we've still got 5 frigates and the Intrepid, a YCA, sitting right there on top of that wormhole, along with Kepler, which is the tug that, of course, they built a YDK on that wormhole. Excellent. Just makes it a harder target, or a harder, make it more difficult to go through that hole, so to speak. So that's good. We've got other cruisers with prime teams in the area. We can see the Ptolemy, tug, thank you, which will be probably building a base there and continuing its exploration into the Fog of War hexes. We can see the continued pursuit effort to be able to explore towards the center by the Saratoga, 9th, 10th Fleet, and various other cruisers with prime teams here. Very interesting to see that they are still leaving that cruiser with a prime team right on that Kzinti planet, and the Kzinti have not told them to bug off and get out. I'm very curious to see how that's going to develop. We've also got 8th Fleet, which has discovered an Orion base here. And, of course, this tug, the Cassini, which is most likely going to build another base along the Lyran border here. It's very interesting looking at the base distribution. Let's just take away the ships real quick. I know it's still a little messy, but when you look at the distribution of bases, generally speaking, for the Feds, it's really well built. So along the Lyran border, we've got a very even distribution of 2 and 2 hexes, so very well mutually supported, and then another tier in the back working towards the capital. So good distribution. Not as well defined and distributed on the border with the Tholians, but I mean, nonetheless, 2 hexes apart. They got a couple bases here that can mutually support. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's no harm, no foul, no issues, no problems. It's very, very sort of being well developed. So Federation are continuing to move forward in a very interesting way. Let's just take a quick look at the Fed home fleet, which I'm imagining is some kind of like bank of bad ships. Yeah, so we got a YDD, a couple of YFFs, a bunch of crippled YFFs. I was curious what that must have been dealing with a monster, I'm going to guess. So couple YCAs and a YCC. Excalibur. I love how he's naming all these ships. I like it. So the I'm assuming that those are the ships that went and dealt with that monster and then retroed to the capital to be repaired. And then of course you can see he's got a bunch of other YCAs and ships there. As I've mentioned multiple times before, I think that the Federation are a sleeping giant in this game, and it is really important for us, all players and of course viewers, to keep an eye on those guys, because I have a feeling that they're going to make a play at some point, and when that play is made, it's going to cause a lot of pain and suffering for whoever's on the receiving end of that pointy stick. Very Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly, carry a big stick, and the stick is getting bigger and bigger when it comes to the Federation. Speaking of big sticks, let's roll into the Tholian Empire. Oh my goodness gracious me. 48.5 EP for these bad boys. Goodness gracious. Where are they growing? Let's see here. We've got some... Let's remove the bases. Oh, wrong button. Let's remove bases. Okay, so what do we got? We got a friendly, minor, independent. I don't see any Happy Plus planets, so that's not what's causing that. Maybe there was a planet that was Happy Plus that went to, for example, friendly, and that dropped it by a 0.5. That makes more sense to me. I'm not sure if Canabia, wherever this planet was, I don't know if that used to be. Yeah, it looks like that might have been a Happy Plus at one point, and it fell down to friendly. That would explain the change in the economy. However, what's interesting to note, if I cycle the ships, I don't see the ships discovering any resources. So maybe were they at 49? I don't know. Anyway, interesting to note. Nonetheless, the Tholians are the big dog on the top of the hill when it comes to economy, and they are doing some very interesting things. Let's do a little around the clock here. So let's start at the top right. You can see they're continuing to build bases along the border with the Federation. Interesting distribution of the bases. Noticing the one in the center, and then Gap, and then over here in Oscar 21. They're picking up where they left off with the base building every 2 hexes, but interesting to note the sort of void of bases here and the lack of attention on that. I expect that probably telegraphs their very friendly relationship with the Federation, but nonetheless, interesting to note. We can see here that the Federation, the Tholian ships rather, discovered an Orion base here, and one of their YPCs was crippled, so I'm assuming that may have been crippled as a result of perhaps an encounter with the Orions, and then what are the Orions going to do with those Tholians in their space? Be curious to see. We can see the continued exploration with a big exploration freighter here and here of that space, along with cruisers with prime teams, which you can see they are continuing to explore. These 3 YPCs are basically operating like tugs, and they will be building bases. Interesting to see that they've built the base over the W wormhole, but no effort to go through the wormhole to see what's on the other side. So interesting to see. We've got the November wormhole here with a couple crippled YPCs. Third Fleet. Let's take a look at Third Fleet. Tholian Third Fleet. What do we got? So Tholian Third Fleet is nothing much. A couple of YPCs or patrol craft and a cruiser. Why are a cruiser? So nothing too crazy there. They obviously engaged in something and got hurt, so they are there to the YDK to get repaired. That wormhole, by the way, is the one that goes into Hydran space near Armageddon, which for all of you watching at home is right here. So interesting to note. The Tholians, depending on their level of technology with wormholes, I would expect them to make a play on a weakened Hydran player. So be on the lookout for a Tholian play, because depending on their level of technology and where they're at and how comfortable they are, they could very effectively grab a bunch of EP on the other side of that wormhole with very little resistance. And if they get into position, it's going to be hard to get them off. And with the weakened state of the Hydrans in that area, the Carnivons trying to defend that space, and of course the continued threat of the Remans and the ISC, it seems like a no-brainer to me. So we'll see. I expect Tholian intervention in that space. We'll have to see how that goes. But it just depends on their technology. If they've got the technology to provide supply through wormholes, watch for that to happen. I think that's very likely going to occur. What else we got here? We've got the Gulf wormhole, and I don't know that they've gone through that to be able to see what's on the other side, so it's going to be very interesting. We've got 2 cruisers with prime teams on the border here with the Gorn. Interesting to note. A YDK that's been established right next to the unfriendly Kzinti home planet. And, oh my goodness, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 planetary ground bases. And let's look at the Kzinti home fleet, which is what's there. Ooh, goodness gracious. Okay. A YDN, a YCC, 3 strike cruisers, which are decent, 2 light cruisers, and 6 frigates. That, based on the attack factors of the Kzinti and everything else, that's more than enough to hold off any kind of attack from the Tholians at this point. It'd be curious to see how that evolves going forward and what's going to happen there. The Gorn, speaking of the Gorn, let's roll into Gorn space. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, weather is getting to be an issue. Notice the swirly mess. No, it's not someone getting a swirly, as in the old school bullying that may have happened when you were younger, but this is an ion storm, a hurricane, you might say, in space, that is occurring in Lima 41. And Lima 41, I'd be very curious to hear from our DM, qu'est-ce qui arrive avec the ion storm? What does it mean? What are the consequences? How does it impact the Gorn player? You tell us, Daniel. What does an ion storm do in this game? Mike, to you. While we're waiting on that, and I will come back to the Gorn turn in a second, I see lots of chitter chatter in the chat. Let's get back to it and see what's going on. The Golden Rod, back to George Duffy's comment. Again, he's just predicting the fall of the Klingon Empire, but Eugene, again, being my champion, talking about how the courageous Klingon Empire is the example in shining light that everyone should follow. Chuck says, those who have large fleets, yes, we talked about that. So when when you're at war, you don't have to pay for the ships that you have. When you're at peace, there is a maintenance cost or fleet cap. It's based on fleet cap, which is why we keep going over those numbers. the total number of ships that you have based on your economy, you're going to have to pay 0.05 EP over for every hull that you have, or every defense factor, I should say, over your fleet cap. You're going to have to pay for those ships. So it's going to get pricey. What do we got? George. Yes, but then the Klingons would be facing Romulans and Remans, not Carnivons. George Duffy, what are you saying? It's going to be the cloaking folks against the Klingons. Is that what's going on? The K's versus the K's, kind of saying. Midget Manifesto says Jaguar Black is the lead singer or commander of White Stripe Fleet, I imagine. Jaguar. Yes, Jack Black, you might say. William Linton, our Federation player. Yep, monster died last turn. He used his Federation fleet to stomp that monster. Be curious what you got out of that as far as perks and benefits. You let me know. You let us know, Bill, what happened from the Federation. What kind of perks did you get from that? Ninja Manifesto continues. Good fences make good neighbors. Also, the Feds are probably the only threat to the Tholians right now. Gorn have low attack factors. So true. The Gorn and the Tholians both have this crappy ship situation, which will be corrected as they advance into GW. But the Federation really are the only threat that the Tholians face, really. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Daniel, our GM, piping in on ion storms. Ion storms make the space they occupy impassable, blocking all movement and supply. Excellent. Bill, can't draw supply through it, can't receive supply through it, can't travel into it or out of it. So the ion storm becomes an impassable piece of terrain that really gets in the way of the Gorn way of doing business. It'd be interesting to see if that ion storm moves or grows or what happens there. But nonetheless, Lima 41 is becoming a pain in the Gorn posterior, scaly though it may be. And but no real significant impact, as we can see that we've got two major fleet here on the border with the Romulans. Strike Fleet is positioned along with their R&D team over this wormhole. We've got KE-1, which is just a W-era frigate from the Remans, which had gone through a wormhole eons earlier, sitting on top of a base with an improved destroyer, W-era improved destroyer from the Gorn. And, of course, we've got diplomatic efforts continuing on Carob, which is the planet on the border with the Romulans, trying to get them happy as opposed to the unhappy, which is what they're at right now. What else we got here? We've got exploration continuing to occur along the stretch here. Interesting to note, as I move the ships, notice the connection of unexplored space between the Romulans and the Gorn along here. It'd be very interesting to see what the chitter-chatter is between the Gorn and the Romulans about how they're going to move forward and explore in that space. Be very interesting to see how that's going forward. Obviously, the Gorn have this colony, which is providing them at least 3 supply up in this area. We've got a base being constructed here in Oscar 36, which will also provide supply. And, of course, 2 exploration or survey ships with Vengeance Fleet, I'm assuming. Vengeance Fleet. Maybe it's the name fleets. Okay, so Vengeance Fleet, we see as a DN with a YDD and YFF. So the YDN is very good at being able to explore, but it would be better if it had a prime team on it. Recommend putting a prime team in Vengeance Fleet to make that more successful. Mobile Fleet with its large battleship, also with a prime team, makes sense to maybe move that out there and do some exploration as well. Of course, you want to maintain some kind of military presence on the border with the Tholians because you never know what those sneaky Tholians are going to do. Very, very interesting. Okay, and of course, in the south aspect of their territory, you've got ships, CLs, and various fleets basically being cruisers with prime teams conducting exploration into the south of the Gorn territory, just trying to further spread out and build out their economy. Let's move into the Romulan side of things. So not much else to talk about with the Romulans. We already talked about the snaky S-shaped border that has occurred. We've got the continued exploration of these Legion fleets, which are all just basically cruisers with the prime team, moving on up. Obviously, with the the S-shaped border, there's going to be a slight sort of moving around as far as where the emphasis is on exploration. We've got a base that's been completed here by this YFB, or their tug, and so they'll facilitate further exploration to the north. Like I say, it'll be interesting to see what the Gorn and the Romulans are going to do with each other there. We've talked about the exploration R&D team moving this way. And then, of course, well, we've got quite a collection of wormholes. Everyone's got all these wormholes, and no one's going through them. The Juggernauts have really put a clamp down on people's freedom to maneuver through wormholes. I don't know if I like that. Very interesting. Okay, so we've got Sierra here. Let's move ships out of the way. Ships. Oh, I got to move a base too. Okay, Zulu, Sierra, and Yankee. Those are the wormholes there. So we've got an Orion base and ship here. Continued exploration, as you can see, with these various legions as they're moving in to explore this space. We can see that the Klingons are doing the same, although probably not as quickly, because, I mean, goodness, look at all this stuff. But let's take a moment. I will move my head to the other side, and we can briefly talk about the Klingons. So we can see along the border here, again, the S shape has taken form. Let's take away the ships real quick. We're doing a fairly decent job at pumping out or getting rid of this fog of war area here. So you can see that that's continuing to occur. We have an exploration freighter, or exploration cruiser, I should say, here. D4C with a prime team successfully did their exploration. The D4E did not. Interesting. So we got some more exploration on the way there. We can see Foxtrot 42 base has been completed, so providing supply to these folks. We've got unsuccessful exploration that has occurred there. D4E and D3E doing their various exploration, as though those are the survey ships for the Klingons. What else we got? Let's slide over. Nothing too crazy over on this side. Basically, tug has been established, or the tug that was here is basically become a fleet, just to make it easier to handle, because it's got a prime team on it. Because tugs with prime teams, the tugs for the Klingons are cruisers, so it's like a cruiser with a prime team, so it can do its own sort of exploration in this neck of the woods, makes it easier to handle. As we've got cruisers doing exploration in the southern area here, and of course, let's focus on the dogleg that has shown up here. So the free trade zone, or free transit zone, I should say, which has occurred here. Let's take away the ships real quick. So facilitating the creation and movement of bases and ships up in this neck of the woods. So we'll have to, as far as the Klingon side, we'll have to get some tugs up in that direction to be able to facilitate base building and various other things, and get that stuff on the go. But man, there's so many things to do and so little money to do it with. We can see that the D4N, the diplomatic ship, has arrived on this particular planet, Conciliator's Claw, which, if you remember way back when, we had the honor duel that brought them into the Empire. So we'll have to, you can see they're indifferent right now. We're going to have to do a little bit of chitter chatter and diplomatic tomfoolery to make sure that they get happy, and bring them back online. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Not too much else on the Klingon side other than just the creation of the dogleg and the S-shaped border. But let's dive into the Carnivon. What are the Carnivon doing? Our good friends. Let's take a look. So they've way long time ago, they popped off that Orion base. We can see that they've got Den and First Reserve. Let's take a quick look at Den Fleet, which, bad memories, traumatic. What can I say? Den Fleet, DN, CC, 2 CAs, Drone Bombardment Destroyer, 2 frigates, 2 crippled frigates. I'm expecting them to make their way to this YDK to be able to facilitate their repair. You can see they've got 3 FFs, a CL, and Coyote. So let's look at Coyote. Carnivon Coyote Band. So Coyote's got a couple of frigates, a drone bombardment destroyer, and a cruiser. So they're creating like a, what we'll call it, like a little task group there. Wolfpack 1 continues to sit over that planet, again, providing that sort of security factor, making sure that that planet doesn't go bad. They've got a drone bombardment cruiser, drone bombardment destroyer, 3 destroyers, and 3 frigates right there. Oh, there we go. Yep. So that's a minor planet, which is Happy Plus. What else we got? On their homeworld, which again, they have this wormhole there that I'm trying to remember where Juliet goes. But we've got a couple, so a CL, 2 YFFs, and a bunch of prime teams on their homeworld. We've got, what else we got here? We've got, a YDN, YTG, drone bombardment cruiser. Oh, wow. Okay. And YFF. We've got YTG and YFF. And then we've got, of course, Home Fleet still sitting on top of this wormhole. Interesting. Carnarvon, where are you? Carnarvon Home Fleet is not small. DN with a YCC, cruiser, drone bombardment cruiser, 2 CAs, 2 drone bombardment destroyers, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates. So not nothing in this area. What I find particularly interesting from the Lyran perspective is the Lyran wormhole comes out right here on top of Home Fleet. If the Lyrans had the technology to be able to travel through wormholes and provide supply, and they also had a sizable fleet, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You could not only go through that wormhole and cause a lot of pain and suffering for the Carnarvon, assuming you could get through them, but because the Hydra new homeworld is going to be right here on Refuge, that gives you quick and easy access to cause pain to the Hydrans as well. Now, not that I'm trying to suggest anything, but if the Lyrans really wanted to stir things up and cause problems, you could build a fleet and then send it through that wormhole, and, well, that could cause some issues. We'll have to see what that looks like as things go forward. But nonetheless, very, very interesting. Again, I think First Reserve is pretty much just an exploration fleet. Yep, YFL with YFEL with a frigate. So large exploration freighter doing its thing with frigate escort. You've got a tug here and a convoy. I'm sure one of these guys is going to build a base and the other one is going to provide extended supply, something along those lines, and move that exploration up into the northwest. Thank you. So they're going to continue doing that piece. That's good. And yeah, let's take away the ships real quick and see what they got. So bases, you can see the base distribution here is a little sort of ad hoc, a little bit more sort of regular, if we'll call it that, along the border here. If we bring the ships back real quick, yeah, we can see that there's a chain of bases here to be able to facilitate reaction movement to the planet here in this base here. And of course, they're kind of moving sideways or laterally and up into the corner here. And then, of course, whatever they can do to be able to support at the moment, the Hydrants with regards to their issues and challenges there. I'll be really interested to see what happens with this Dreadnought, or not Dreadnought, the Juggernaut, I should say, CA, and the Bug, because if the Bug continues to go down this way and the Juggernauts continue to do what they're just going to be incredibly disruptive and cause a lot of pain and suffering for the Carnarvon or the Hydrants. One last thing to talk about when it comes to the Hydrants, once they've established their new homeworld, I'll bring them back to bases, it's important to remember that the connectivity, the supply network to their new homeworld is important. In order for you to maintain your economy, you need, and not have isolated supply nodes, you need to be able to have everything connected to the homeworld. So as long as 1, 2, 3, 4. So based on what I'm looking at right now, this 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the connection to the homeworld. This is the homeworld, or this will be the homeworld refuge. So they have connection to this YBS, this connects to this, which connects to this part of the supply network. These two are the two that connect this part of the supply network up here. But notice that there's a void here as far as supply, and the connectivity is an issue. So all that to say, for our GM, because our GM is the referee and he'll be keeping an eye on this stuff, it's important to observe however the combat or battles that occur going forward, when various bases are destroyed, we just need to look at and confirm the supply network going back to the Hydran homeworld. Not that we're trying to, beat on a dead horse here, but just the fact that because of the fragile supply structure and network of the Hydran Empire as it stands now, it would be relatively easy for lost bases and things to dramatically affect what little, like what income is left and the access to it. So just something to keep in mind as we're walking forward. So there's, oh my goodness, there's so much there, right? So much to talk about. Okay. So, oh my goodness, look at all this. All right, let's have a quick run into the chat. Oh my goodness. Okay. Whoa. Eugene, do they grow? Let's see here. Do they grow as far as the ion storms for the Gorn? Don't know. Are borders between happy neighbors required, i.e. Gorn Romulan area? No, they are not. However, once you go to war, so you don't necessarily have to be at war until you choose to be at war, and then in order to establish peace again, you would have to establish a neutral zone. As it is right now, there is peace between the Gorn and the Romulans. They don't have to be at war. Yeah. So as we have the rules right now, there is an established peace treaty between the Gorn and the Romulans. So there is not war right now. They do not have a neutral zone established in that area. If they fight each other, they'll be at war. In order to go back to peace, they would have to establish another neutral zone or some other kind of agreement. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. This is how the sort of the house rules and or role-playing aspect comes into this. William, monsters identified as banshees. Ooh, combat 12, no cripples. Special ability. If monsters destroy a convoy or base, add 6 more swarms between combat rounds. Banshees are bad. William, Federation forces were 1 YCC, 3 YCAs, 2 YDDs, and 6 YFFs. Monsters were 3 Banshees, or Banshee Swarm. William Linton, battle results, Federation casualties, 2 YDDs, crippled, 6 YFFs, crippled. Monsters, 3 Banshees destroyed. Federation victory analysis of the strange creatures, advanced hot warp tech by 4 RP. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Eugene, FF. So thank you for that. Thank you, Bill, for sharing the battle information around your Banshees. So, for example, there's a couple of different monsters, Banshees being one, that when they encounter and destroy ships, bases, and various other things, they grow. Like the size of the monster grows. So they start to scale. In the previous game, the Lost Stars campaign, I dealt with a swarm, which was just like self-replicating robots. And so as they destroyed bases and ships, they would replicate and basically double. And that became a huge problem that I had to deal with and a huge pain in my posterior. Eugene, FF34, will it be able to detect something 1 hex away or only once it moves into a hex? FF34. Let me find FF34 first before FF34. Okay. So FF34, she is making reference to right beside my head here as I scroll down. She's talking about the YDD here. So long story short, ships will have a 1 hex sensor range unless they're a scout, in which case they can have up to a 2 hex sensor range, or a survey ship. So 1 hex sensor range means that as the YDD moves into a hex, and if there are ships in the surrounding hexes, then you'll be able to detect a warp signature of a certain size class. That's it. And then you got to move into it if you want to find out what it is. You will be able to detect stabilizing thrusters, I think is how we're describing it. But basically, you can determine if it's a static sensor contact or if it's a mobile sensor contact. If it's a static sensor contact, then you can know it's a base, and if it's a mobile one, then you know it's a ship. And so you get a basic sense of what it is, but you can't identify it until you go into the hex. So hopefully that answers your question, Eugene. If they find Juggies, how will they know, assuming they live to know their success? So 2 things. 1, when you move into the hex and you encounter the ship, you'll know what kind of ship it is. So there you go. And then 2, if they engage in a battle, then they'll know who they're fighting. Now, granted, you're right. with a YDD, most likely it'll be popped and destroyed, but nonetheless, an opportunity there to be able to figure that out. Midget Manifesto, I think you need a border between Empire. Otherwise, when your ships are in each other's supply lines, it triggers war. Tony, no doubt, can shed light on this. Ha ha ha. So, yes, let's I will pull up so in our bespoke rules, we have rules around when you can go to war, when you have to be at war, when you have to be at peace, and so on. So let's see here. Definition of own territory. Where is it? Okay, so definition of own territory. In the absence of a neutral zone, all hexes an empire has supplies to are your own territory. Limited war. An empire may change its economy in a limited war in order to raid, send more than one ship to deal with a pirate or raider, or engage in military operations against a minor empire. Against monsters, if a successful ID suggests more than one ship is needed, or if a monster approaches within 2 hexes of a planet and or colony. The responding ship is destroyed, or if a base is destroyed, the empire may change its economy to limited war. Required peace. An empire cannot have its economy on a war footing unless uninvited ships of a major empire have crossed into your own territory since your last turn, or your empire has fixed supply to a fixed military target, i.e. planet or base, or a major empire that it does not have peace treaty with. Required war supersedes required peace if both apply. So, based on that, there is no requirement for the Gorn and the Romulans to be at war, as they currently have an agreement in place. And there's nothing in the definition of... So it says an empire may change its economy to limited war status. And I'm not seeing anything here that would indicate that war status is required. However, because there is an established agreement. However, they can certainly sort of engage in a... They can certainly go to war status if they want to attack each other, and they can come up with another agreement with regards to how they want to handle that space. So we'll have to see how that goes forward. So very, very exciting. My goodness, we're already up to nearly 2 hours. Okay, let's take a quick sip of the magic blue. Keeps me hydrated. What can I say? Coffee is wonderful and keeps me stimulated, but it does dehydrate you. All right. So let's talk real quick about how we are going to move forward here. So we've got this wonderful turn so far. Hope you enjoyed the round table and how things went. If you enjoyed and you stayed with us this long, then please put your comments down below. Sorry, I was just looking at the note here, or Daniel's thing. The conditions mainly exist to force you to go to peace once already at war. So basically, we're at peace until you decide to go to war, and if you want to go to war, then you can go to war. All right, so going forward from here, hope you enjoyed the round table, going around the clock and talking about all the exciting things that are going on. Yes, the fall of Hydrax is a thing. The golden rod is in effect. The borders have been a shifting and a changing. The dog leg is in effect, and of course the web of influence as the Tholians are destroying various Orion bases in their space. What's happening as things go forward, we shall see. But if you are interested in playing along in this game, then be on the lookout this week, as I will be publishing a short trailer video launching the recruitment for our upcoming campaign, Into the Void. And with that video, there will be a link in the description to a Google form where you will be able to input your information and sign up. Now, as I've said before, and we'll make reference to this in the trailer video, preference to players first goes to those who are currently supporters of this channel on Ko-fi and or Patreon, obviously subscribers, and those who were part of our community. It's a first come, first serve basis, and so there is only going to be a limited number of players, and like I say, first come, first serve. So for those of you who are in our community, you're probably already aware or are in contact. There we are with Jim, who's going to be GMing that game, and have had some discussion about what kind of factions you want to play. But like I say, be on the lookout for that form. It will be coming out, like I say, this coming week. Also, the trailer for that, which will be the link to the forum will be in the description of the video, which will be the trailer. And basically, we will be starting on July 1st, Canada Day. That'll be the start date for the campaign. And so it'll be exciting to see the map start to move forward and have a discussion about that campaign. Interesting to see that we've had some changes to the vassal module to be able to affect that campaign. It'll be exciting and new to get your feedback and input on what you think about the new visually stimulating interface, and what kind of sort of new features and aspects of gameplay that will be introduced into this game. Again, this is a constantly evolving game that we're creating as far as the layering of house rules in such a way to be able to add fun and create more dynamic and exciting environments when it comes to this play. But it's all based, and we wouldn't be here without the Amarillo Design Bureau and the Federation and Empire game that they have created. So big kudos to ADB for maintaining this wonderful community and game that we like to play. We have fun playing, and looking forward to this fun. So howdy to the new subscriber, Captain Phoenix. Of course, Captain Phoenix was our newest subscriber last week. Even though our subscriber count did go up by 1, which granted, not that much in the YouTube world, but I haven't really seen a change. Obviously, Captain Phoenix either unsubscribed and subscribed accidentally or whatever the case may be. Speaking of subscribers, if you have stayed with us this long and you would like to support the channel, just generally speaking, as far as following along and keeping up to date on what's going on, please hit that subscribe button and allow us to grow towards that 500 subscriber count. We're trying to get to 500 because it opens up the community tab in YouTube, which is just another way for us to be able to post images and other ways of being able to interact and provide content for you on this channel and part of this community. But hey, just so happy that all of you have joined us here in the live moment. If you're catching us on the replay and you stuck with us this long, then thank you for catching us, or thank you for taking the time on the replay to stay with us. Looking forward to seeing those of you who are part of our community in the Discord after this is done, which will be in a moment or two. Thank you so much for staying with us. I see we've got a double-digit likes for double-digit concurrent live viewers, so thank you so much. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you're catching us on the replay. And of course, thank you for all those who have shared with us your up-to-date comments in the live chat. So thank you, everybody. I will see you next week. Very excited to see what happens with the Hydran faction. Will they rise to the occasion and come back and kick ISC butt? How will the dogleg be used? What is going to happen with the increasing size and scope and power of the Tholian Empire? And will that sleeping Federation faction really come out into its own? Who knows? So many exciting things to happen. The seasons, they are changing, and the new season is about to dawn. How is that going to affect the game? We'll only know next week when you tune in at 11 o'clock Pacific time. See you next week, everybody. I am out. Bye for now.